thing real.
Oh, we're live.
Hey, on the go. I'll do it.
We're here. Well, I'll introduce you so you have a little bit to get yourself ready. Hey, everybody, how are you doing? We are back on another episode on a Saturday. I usually don't stream on Saturdays. It's 11/11, November 11th. Been a busy Saturday for me. Got a lot of work done, but we are here with Palantir's Palantir, also known as Adam. His Twitter is in the description, and I'm linking his Twitter right now in the chat as well. This is someone I was introduced to by our other good friend Adam, named Adam Bergman, who got to meet Adam in person. And for those that don't know, Palantir is someone who has dug up a lot of research around two main things. Number one, the Palantir patents, which we know there's a lot of patents out there that Palantir has, kind of speaks to their moat. And number two is the government contracts. And today, for the next hour, I really wanted to focus on what are some of the government contracts that we as regular investors that don't spend as much time Adam does researching it, that we don't know about, and how really big is the pie. Alex Karp has said that there's a very, very big pie in terms of government revenue that Palantir may be able to capture, and Adam today is going to broadly explain what that pie is. So Adam, why don't you introduce yourself, say who you are to the community, and then we'll get started.
Appreciate that. Thank you for a nice introduction. A lot of you know me as Palantir's Palantir or GoCarp for all the Discord people that are following it or listening or that are in the Discord. Appreciate that. Just your average investor. I know nothing more than, Amit or anyone else. There's no one else, no privy information. All I do is dig and connect dots and hope my confirmation bias turns out correct. We'll know in 10, 15 years. I feel pretty confident that I think we'll be right on it. It's really impossible for me to quantify on how big the actual pie really is because they meaning the government and specifically the DOD and, of course, Congress, because they're the one that has to approve the bill. They don't even know. It's very disjointed, but it's very jointed at the same time. It's very ironic. I know it's a disjointed joint effort. So they're
Right.
building on it. And I think what a lot of people need to realize is it's very new, like all of it. So like the AI, the JADC2, it's all new. So that's just part of it. It's just going to take time. And they've made massive, massive strides in the past year. And there's no way I know what could be coming down the pipeline from all the research that I dig up in the whole community because it's so secretive. So that's like one of the best parts about being a Palantir investor or just, being, involved in the company. It's just very secretive. So it's kind of fun to go down that rabbit hole. But we're going to talk a lot about how big is the pie? How big could it potentially be? We might not even get as far as we want to as a community. It's something that changes every day. So like anyone that's been in the Discord, they know I kind of been hyping up my quote unquote pilly porn all day. I don't know if I could say that, but I already did.
You did. So, but before we get into some of the government stuff, let me ask you this question to start off. What got you interested in Palantir, and can you give us a little spiel on why you have a Discord, why you research, why you build Twitter, like why do you care about Palantir?
Take the stock out of it. Even from an investing standpoint, you don't want to invest in the stock as an investor. You want to invest in the company,
right,
before you get into the financials and all that. So it's truly growing up as a little kid. I always wanted to own Boeing because I just felt like it was an American company. It was something prideful. And when I got old enough to do it, I bought a few shares. Am I going to retire off of it? No. I might even sell it for some Palantir. But growing up and seeing where Palantir is now, a few years ago, I was saying it's more like Boeing meets Microsoft and they had a baby, and that gets you Palantir to a degree. Very, very American, obviously in the software, but really Karp is someone I truly, truly respect as an individual and as a CEO. I truly, truly trust his vision. It's very, very complex. It's very, very grand. When he says he's the batshit crazy CEO, he truly, truly is. But sometimes you need to be a little bit crazy, especially in this world, to succeed. And the reason why there's so few winners is because they're not willing to take something so crazy as what they're doing. So, and you're definitely one, and I see it in the back. You've read 0 to 1. And in the early stages, we saw they try to go to a 0 to 1 approach. They went to the big boys, they were going to come their way down from a commercial context, and that's how they were going to expand. And now they're doing a more 0 to 1 approach for the commercial, where they took the AIP, which is just a part of Foundry, and they're sticking it all over. And we're seeing that everywhere. So they're going back to their 0 to 1 roots, but the 0 to 1 has always stayed within the government, because you can't just automatically go to the top and work your way down. You have to just carve your way in. And
Right.
that's really what we're going to see. We're going to see not really Maven. I know I tweeted a little bit about Maven yesterday, but Maven, and we spoke about it a little bit, but Maven is just an unbelievable platform from my understanding. Like, that's how they're finding hostages at the current moment in Israel Hamas, is through Maven, through an MQ9 Reaper, if I understand the connection correctly. Like, that's how fucking deep. I don't know if I can curse. Sorry.
You can curse. Don't
That's
worry, we're good. So
uh,
let's segment this. Let's get started with this. So let's start off with JAD-C2. Can you give us an overview of what that is, what it encompasses, and why
yes.
Palantir is in the running, and why it's important that Palantir gets some part of that
And
contract?
this is exactly where I wanted to start, and this is exactly what I wanted to ask you before we start. I want to share some stuff today, and I
Yes.
just don't. I think I
So you
figured
see
it
you
out.
see
You
the
just
button right there. You see the present button.
Yep, I read that. Share screen.
Yeah,
Okay.
present share screen. Click the tab, and then I'll get it on my side, and then I can share it. And
Okay,
then
I can
we'll
pick a Chrome tab. Perfect. All
Yep,
right,
any Chrome tab.
awesome.
Yep. Thank you to
So
134 people being here in the chat. Here we go. Yep.
thank you for joining. So
You have to drink some water
I
for
tweet.
this. You have to get ready. It's like, I got some shit to
I,
say. Go ahead. It's your floor. You got it.
I've been hyping it up pretty much in the Discord. So what I'm about to drop is pretty massive here. So something I'm sure many of you have seen this tweet or not. This is basically
Wait,
the
by the way, I
department.
say that after I eat Taco Bell. I say the exact same thing. What I'm about to drop is pretty massive. So go ahead.
So
You got
so this is the budget for 2024. It says it right there. But the main reason why I just wanted to start with this is this image. So when we say JAD-C2, it's this entire department. So it is everything encompassing this line, but picture this line connected here. It doesn't really matter because it's connected here, but everything is falling JAD-C2 more or less, in the way how the Army, which is its own thing, as you can see, the Navy, which is its own thing, as you can see, the Marines, which are part of the Navy, but it has its own little, division. Just leave that aside, and the Air Force. And then you see everything else that's connected to it: Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Secretary of Defense, the agencies, blah, blah. It's all going to be connected through one fiber. So that is what you're looking at on a grand pie. I don't know how to tell you how much money that's going to be. Is that going to be $5 billion, or is it going to be $500 billion? I have absolutely no idea, and I'm never really ever going to know. But that's where I wanted to start off. But I wanted to segue into this just so everyone can understand. When I said the other day, when I was on before, they have to win Titan, and this is why. And this is one of my bigger bombshells. This thing came out over a year ago, this interview, and I found it a few months ago, a little bit longer than a few months ago. I didn't want to say anything because I put enough out there. But this is how close Palantir and Raytheon is to JADC2 from the top level. So I'm going to share my screen again. And I think I'm sharing my screen again. Let me know
not
if I am.
yet. Sometimes it takes a second. You just have to press present on the Chrome tab. Basically what you just did last time.
Yep, I did the wrong thing. I'm sorry. So
there you go. You're good. There you go.
This guy, Major General John M. Olson, and I'll just read you real quickly, and it's the first thing you see Major General John Olson is the mobilization assistant to the Chief of Space Operations and Space Force lead for JADC2 and AMBMS. And if you remember what I said before, ABMS is Advanced Battle Management System, which is the Air Force's component for the JADC2. But you notice that's Air Force, this is the Space Force. Put the dots together, it's connected, and we'll get deeper into that. So the Space Force is going to be using ABMS, which is already using Warp Core. You'll see there's just so many connections everywhere. So that's really the first thing that I wanted to share. But the reason why I'm showing you this guy is last year in October, he held a discussion with 3 people. One of them, I forgot 2 of their names. Obviously, I'm not going to really remember them, but one of them, the gentleman, his company was from Leidos. I believe it's an information technology company. And the other speaker on the panel was from Raytheon. Kerry Williams, I believe her name was. But the third person on the panel was our very own Akash John. So as you can imagine, and I'm going to show you this, which this is my picture that I like to call the hive mind, which I think everybody will appreciate, because when I'm going to read you some quotes from this panel discussion, and it is quite the thing. So there it
And
is.
this is all around JADC2 still, right? Yeah.
Look,
Creating the JADC2.
you can read the headline. This is this is creating the architecture of JADC2. So these are the 3 people that they chose to discuss JADC2 from a architectural, how it's coming together standpoint. And this is not made up. This is clearly what you're seeing. It's Akash John, Palantir's own CTO, president of Palantir United States government. And it was, it doesn't get any clearer than this, in my opinion, of the connection. So
he's on the committee to try to create what the bill will look like, essentially.
So
correct?
Yes, basically, there is basically a committee, if you will, or a team, and he is part of it. But you'll from some of the quotes that we'll read, Palantir, or rather, if you will, because I guess they can't say outright Palantir, data, AI, machine learning. It is, if not the most important part, it's the top 3 most important part of the entire JADC2 effort. So just off that alone, here is, one of the quotes from the gentleman who was the moderator, who was the I read his title for you. The definition for JADC2 is really the ability to sense, make sense, and act across all domains across the joint services in a contested environment at the speed of relevance. That's a partnership of across all services across the whole of nation response. So it's everyone. That's how big we're talking. And from a, if we can quote unquote put it from like an image standpoint, these are the 2 images that I would say how we can quantify it. And I'll share these after the stream, because this stuff just goes to show you how deep and how big it truly is, because it's so, the mode is so wide, because it's not just the Army, the Navy, it's everything. So it's really remarkable.
It's almost like you could almost describe it as kind of like a conglomerate of contracts that will encompass the entire digital modernization of the Army, military, DoD, etc.
Basically, and if you look at the screen, this is the concept. It says it right here. This is the architecture. This is the concept. So you have your air, your space, your land, your sea, your cyber, and stretching all through it, you have your JADC2. And if you look connected to it, and we'll zoom in, look at the 3 main things that really make JADC do. Data fabric, who do we know that has that? AI and machine learning. Those things are the ones that command and power this whole vision, if you will, there's a reason why that's dead center and not the fighting stuff. Like it like I said before, like they said that data is the top three. Obviously, Palantir, guy says it's the most important, but you know that that's how important good quality, clean data with responsible data governance, AI, and machine learning is in JADC2. And this is going to power the entire war network. So
You have
you
sea,
have,
cyber, land, air, space. That is a lot. Correct.
yes, and there's a reason why you see Palantir have work with Space Force. They have work with the Air Force to a degree. They do work obviously with the Army. We have the Army Research Lab, which they've gotten contracts for before. So they are getting there, and there's a lot more room to grow. That's the fun part. Is it's barely, in my opinion, getting it's barely just begun from that standpoint because there's going to be other players, of course, but this effort, if you will, is something that is just about to, get going. And one of the things that we can read, that I'll read for you real quickly.
And for those that are
And
wondering what it is Joint All Demand Command and Control. That's what it stands for.
correct. And this is they call him Aki, so I'm just going to refer to him as Aki from now on ever. This is what he says. He says. He goes, we've really observed over the last 2 decades that we've been doing this is it's going to take the whole commercial industrial base, all the things that generally referred to earlier, the strength of our country, the entrepreneurship of our governments, and those that come here and have advanced technologies, the full defense, these solutions in order to provide the government with some kind of speed to capability now. And I think if you look, for example, some of the things that are happening in Europe, this is during Russia Ukraine. Remember, this is October 2022, so this is a few months into that. Right now you're seeing kind of early inklings of the last probably couple years of JADC2 strategy actually play through. They have the data because they're doing it on the Russia Ukraine front right now. That's how
Right.
they're being able to get it. There is an interop. There is data moving around. We're using MBSE and we're using those models and simulation and training that was done, whether it's through Scarlet Dragon, which was a military exercise that I believe included United States, New Zealand, Australia, or maybe it was just the Five Eyes. Don't quote me on that. You can look that up. But they do a lot of work like that, obviously. Uh, Through global information dominance experiments or through Valiant Shield, which is another military exercise. So it that was last year, over a year ago. So it's been really, really improved since. And
So
the
when do you think this type? I know JADC2 encompasses a lot of stuff, but does it have an announcement date, or are there many subdivisions of contracts that are eventually going to be announced over the next couple of years?
That's a really good question. So there's just going to be a lot of things that are just going to fall under the umbrella. So that picture that I first showed with like from the Department of Defense, like you're just going to see companies get contracts and maybe they reference JADC2, maybe they reference Joint All Domain Command Control. Like they may not mention that. They may mention Project Convergence. They might mention Project Overmatch, whatever it might be. It's like they're not just what you have to understand is what we're talking about right now, and I'm not trying to stretch the truth to make us seem like really cool, even though it really fucking is we're talking about like arguably the most secretive, high classified like stuff that the military is working on at the moment. Like
Right.
Project Overmatch is probably one of the most secretive programs going on at this current moment. Like the
I didn't even
fact
know
that
what
they let
Project Overmatch was. It's the first time I'm hearing of it. So
there's a reason. They don't want people to know. So this is part of the Department of the Defense release of the 2024 defense budget. So these are just a couple figures that I pulled, and some of it is related to JADC2. Like we discussed last time, they're going to have $1.4 billion for 2024 fiscal. That $250 million contract that Palantir got a few weeks ago, that might
right.
fall under that fiscal 24 money to a degree. I don't know how it works perfectly. It probably does if I had to assume. But if let's just say let's call it 25 million of the 1.4, that's fiscal 24. I don't know. I just pulled that out of thin air. So that money is exclusively for JADC2, quote unquote JADC2. But then they have 17.8 billion for science and technology. So, I mean, eh,
And this is
Palantir is
part of
doing
the defense budget that has to be allocated for full year 2024, correct?
correct. So this is part of the defense budget. So that's science and technology. They fall under that. Obviously, they're not going to get $18 billion. Let's be
Right.
real. But you see where I'm going with this.
Dude,
Artificial
that's a
intelligence.
lot of money that's in
This is
one
what.
vertical that has to be
Oh,
allocated.
good thing you're sitting because you're going to get ready to fucking fall off your ass on this. Because when we see Shyam and Karp go to court and go to Congress and say you need to spend more on AI, I just told you that science and technology was 17.8 billion. This is what they're spending on rapid defense experimentation reserve, 689 million dollars. I don't
Oh,
know what that means. I don't know what that means, but that's
sounds like
almost
some shit
700.
Palantir would do.
It, no, no, no. That's not. This is the best part. They only allocated. I'm using the word only 1.8 billion specifically for artificial intelligence.
Wow.
I didn't. I didn't even bother pulling the figures that included the money for the rockets and the tanks and the blah blah blah. And that's getting billions and billions and billions of dollars. And this is why when you see them go to Congress and say you have to spend at least 5 times more, 5% more, they can get so much value out of developing world class, superior, leading the world in artificial intelligence. I'm not a tech guy. Karp has said it before. Can 5 nerds in a basement beat your company of 100? Yeah, if they're 5 really smart nerds and they use their cash correctly. $1.8 billion is a shit ton of money, but
Yeah.
compared to 18 billion, what's more important in science technology? And granted, I understand it's a very large scope thing that they're covering, but just to circle back specifically to JADC2, and obviously artificial intelligence plays a part in that, but you could see it's broken out. So JADC2 has its own allocated budget.
Right.
AI has its own allocated budget. Palantir is going to get a little bit of both out of that. So that's the nice thing. But out of that 1.4, this is what the 5 main buckets of the
You want to share
2024
your screen, by the way? You want to
JADC.
share this part?
I'm good for this part. This is just
Okay.
words on a screen right now.
Okay.
I,
Cool.
I, I
Cool.
have more pretty pictures in a few.
Gotcha.
So there are 5 main buckets for 2024 JADC2 funding request. So the Army's Project Convergence is asking for 66 million. Does that 66 million include Titan? Probably not, because Titan is its own program, but it's underneath Convergence. And this is why I said they have to win Titan to agree, because I just shared with you that the quote unquote hive mind for JADC2 is Palantir and Raytheon. They cannot lose. Like if they split it, that's fine, but they maybe they lose on the tech and they lose on the hardware and they win on the software. And there was some good information in that panel discussion that said what John Palantir focused on. It was very general to a degree because, like I said, it's so secretive. So
Can
you
we
have
talk about that for a second? But before we go forward as well, the importance of the Titan contract, because you mentioned that in the last stream. Can you spend like 5 minutes saying why we cannot afford to lose that Titan contract? Why it matters so much?
yeah. So if the Army is going to quote unquote, or the DoD is going to have the 2030 vision, the Army of 2030 vision of being a quote unquote fully digital fighting force. That means, Amit, if me and you were drafted into the Army tomorrow and they said you're jumping out of this plane and you're going to land in some field in Ukraine, we're jumping out with SkyKit on our back and we're going to know our latitude, our longitude. We're going to know where the enemy is in terms of, are they 100 yards to the west? Are they 100 yards to the east? How much equipment do they have with them? What is their, ammo? What is their, their surroundings? All that stuff. Obviously, we're going to know our stuff, how much ammo, all that fun stuff we're going to have. So Titan, it's going to be on the battlefield reading all this information in terms of
Mm,
who's coming, are rockets being launched at them. They're going to be able to, I would imagine it over the grand scheme of things, they're going to be able to take drones and obviously use satellites via meta constellation. And they're just going to be able to watch the enemy from inside the, car basically. And they're just going to send in from above, missiles. One of the, I don't know why this came into my mind, and this is a great opportunity actually. One of the best books I ever read was called Bomber Mafia. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
no.
I highly recommend it. And basically, it was about the people, mostly the lieutenants and the generals, who finished off what was basically centered around the couple days leading up before they dropped the atomic bomb. And Curtis LeMay has a famous quote. If we lost the war, I would have been a war criminal. And I'm going to circle back to that in a second. But the reason why I'm bringing that up is the entire premise of the United States Army and their allies is to minimize civilian casualties. And this has been the main thing since World War II and World War One and World War II, especially when they had bombs and planes. In that book, they do a really good job of explaining how it happened. They didn't have a manual. No one taught them how to build a plane. So they're doing this all on the fly. And this is actually how they learned about the jet stream, believe it or not, because not to turn this into a history lesson, but long story short, most people don't know this. More people died in the Tokyo fire bombings than in the atomic bombs combined. It was
Right.
basically 100,000 in the Tokyo fire bombings and 100,000 in the atomic bombs. We fucking incinerated Tokyo because they would not bend down, and we used napalm. But what they tried to figure out was when they were doing all these bombings and they didn't want to do it, is the jet stream because they were bombing stuff they were aiming for, ammos, tanks, and it was hitting. But they realized there was a jet stream there, so it was always about this precision missile strike.
The kill chain.
That
Yeah.
was the that was the whole thing. This is in the 40s. So they've been trying forever to figure that out. And they obviously have gotten better and better and better and better as time gone on. So that brings us to where we are today. So now they can essentially, from thousands of feet up, they can hit a target essentially down a chimney, essentially, and have like a pretty decent chance of hitting that target. If you remember a few years ago, I think it was at the time they took out that general or whatever it was. He was like on his balcony, and his family was like in the living room behind him. Like
Hmm.
that is how precise we are talking. That they are able to eliminate a target, but keep the civilian who's 5 feet away unharmed and uninjured. That's where we're getting at.
And so your
So
argument is Titan encompasses about 1.5 billion of that kind of precision kill chain targeting that Palantir hopefully should be able to get some part of.
yeah, targeting and seeing everything is basically the entire point of this JADC2 effort is to see everything together on the battlefield in real time, share that information with your allies, make the best decision possible to execute the target if there is one, or just to move forces without, causing a storm, whatever it might be. So that's really what like that's why it's so big for them to win Titan because they cannot afford to be saying, oh, we're going to be able to do this and bring all this together. Titan essentially is that it is bringing all the information together. So, like Palantir is very software driven, but people don't realize the sensors and everything that's all hardware. So,
Right.
like, it's very, very connected to hardware as well. So, Raytheon's going to have the upper hand in regards to the hardware portion, which I'm not really worried about. I'm pretty confident with Anduril, especially now that Shyam said even Northrop was working with them. But they need to win that, and I think they will because
And they mentioned
meta
it on Q3,
constellation.
right?
Yep, they mentioned it. Sean mentioned it. I don't think they would bring it up for no purpose. We saw they got a $250 million contract. I feel very confident that Titan, bare minimum, it's split between them somehow. Everybody wins, but Palantir is going to get the good bulk of it. That's the base, I would imagine. I wouldn't worry.
Got it.
But the five buckets for 2024 JADC2, 66 million for Project Convergence. That's not the 1 billion for Titan. Remember that. Project Overmatch, they asked for 192 million. Air Force Battle Management System, 500 million. And then cross-functional team efforts, 28 million. Chief Digital and Artificial Intelligence Office, they asked for a responsible JDC2 data layer and application, blah, 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 615 million. And who did we just poach from the chief, digital and artificial intelligence office? Greg Little a few months ago.
Greg Little. Yep.
So there's and then there's 385 millions left to things like artificial intelligence and machine learning. There's your 1.5. I think they're going to see a lot of that 1.5 just from next year. Like they're like 66 million convergence. Okay. Maybe they see some of that with the Army Research Lab because they had the contract with the Army Research Lab, if you remember that, but they don't have a deal with the Air Force Research Lab. But I think that will come together.
Yeah, this is really exciting.
Time.
Right. So okay. So we talked about JADC2. We talked about Titan. I guess let's transition to this thing you tweeted yesterday. This Maven system, Maven Smart System. If you want to give us a little bit of a history on Google and Project Maven and kind of where Palantir's role is, and then what you tweeted yesterday, you can go ahead.
Yeah. So Maven was originally a project that was for Google that we spoke about. And basically, like we said last time, the woke left employees, they all freaked out that they were helping the government, and Google had a temper tantrum and backed away. Palantir said, all right, give me that shit. I'll take it.
Yep.
And they took it and they really proved themselves. And I think this is really where you see the government growth. Because you have to remember, I think when Palantir sued the Pentagon, that was only around, I think, like 2014, 2015, like around the Maven time. So they were getting big government money for the first half of the 2010s. So they're still a relatively new player in this game. So Maven, and this comes from the Department of Defense.
What was this contract about, Maven? Oh yeah, you're going to explain it anyway. Go ahead.
So Project Maven focuses on a computer vision, an aspect of machine learning and deep learning that autonomously extracts objects of interest from moving or still imagery. So what they're able to do, and this is what I basically think I figured out a couple days ago, I tweeted it, is because I lined everything up. And they mentioned, I forgot where I read it, but they mentioned somewhere about Project Maven currently in Israel, Hamas. And Maven is being used, I believe, for getting the hostages out, because that is what Maven's for. It's for getting an object of interest, locating it, and finding it. And in this case, it happens to be a human hostage.
You know what it's kind of like as a metaphor for people in Adobe Premiere and Canva, they have these new AI features where if there's like a girl on a horse, you can literally pick the girl off of the horse, because that's how advanced AI is becoming, right? You can take the object and just move it and make a different photo. But obviously this is much more advanced on the battlefield in a different way.
This is way more advanced, but I get where you're coming from. So Maven, and this is, government officials speaking here, not me. There is no black box that delivers the AI system the government needs, at least not now. Key elements have to be put together, and the only way to do that is with commercial partners alongside. And this article it's relatively new, I believe. I take that back. No, this is from the Department of Defense. This is from July. This is July 2017. So that's when they got the idea of Maven, was 2017. So we're only talking about 6 years. So, it's like I said, it's very, very secretive. This is also what they said. We also have a relationship with a significant data labeling company that will provide services across our 3 networks, the unclassified and the classified networks, to allow our workforce to label our data and prepare it for machine learning. Hello, Palantir. There it is, without saying the name Palantir. So it's really, like I said, it's a very, very, very secretive. And I know I do want to show this. I think I have it here in this one tweet.
Yeah, and
It's
Palantir got this contract in 2019. I believe it was worth 229 million.
Yeah, sounds about right.
So yeah, that's when they picked it up.
So they and if you remember, I'm trying to find that actual uh picture if I can. I thought I had it ready handy, but maybe it's over here. Just so you can kind of see the trickle down effect that we're talking about as it relates to Maven. And we're going to talk real quickly about SOCOM in 5 seconds. But I just want to pull this one image up. I think I have it here. If not, sorry, people.
If you guys are just tuning in, we're talking with Adam here, who runs a Twitter account called Palantir, and the whole premise of his Twitter account is really looking at the deeper government contracts that most retail investors don't know about. There are billions, tens of billions of dollars waiting in the future for a company like Palantir. Will they get all of that? Probably not. But even if they get a small part of that, that is enough to get investors excited.
Most certainly it should. So if we go back and you remember, this was back in May. I tweeted literally a day or two before about SOCOM saying how much they love Palantir and Project Maven, and then they got a $400 million contract literally the day or two after. SOCOM has a $14 billion budget. Just SOCOM. What the image I'm trying to find is of all the comms, because there's multiple comms, as you can imagine.
Right. SOCOM is United States Special Operations Command, the special forces, but there's obviously different Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, Armed Force, etc.
No, that's different.
Oh, that's different than SOCOM? Okay.
So you like SOCOM is its own thing, and then you have like a thing called which is basically the Indo-Pacific region, and then you have like an African comm. Like you have like all these different divisions in their own, basically $15 billion. And SOCOM, they have had such a long good relationship with Palantir, specifically starting with Project Maven, that they got that $400 million back. So, oh, this is okay. I'm very, very stupid. I'm sorry, people. The thing was literally the first thing I showed. I think it's this one. Yep, right here. So you could see it. The combat commands: Africa Comm, Central Comm, European Command, Northern, like all these. This is SOCOM, Special Operations Command. This one. So there 9 different combatant commands. And we're talking about this one just got $14 billion budget and just gave 400 million pounds here, like the day or two after it was announced. So you have to imagine these are also getting significant $1 billion as well, and Palantir will probably get some of that. I would certainly hope so, but that's all the comms. So now I think you're starting to see how big and how deep this really is. So you can't just look at JADC2 and say, oh, okay, JADC2 is going to be $10 billion in 2028. They can get $2 billion of JADC2, and then they can get $3 billion from SOCOM. They can get $3 billion from the Africa. Like we're like they are establishing the data mesh, the data fabric, and that's when you hear them talk about it. That's like what you want to hear, because that's going to be the backbone that everything, I would imagine, flows through, and they're able to create and figure out and edit and see. Like you're going to be in Alaska looking at stuff, all the way in, Taiwan, and you're going to be sharing that within nanoseconds to a commander in Washington, D.C. Like this is where it's going.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think Palantir is first and foremost a defense contractor with commercial as like a call option, a cherry on top? Or do you see them becoming, much, much more bigger than just the defense? Because you're describing hundreds of billions of dollars theoretically that there could be in the running for, right? How do you
I,
conceptualize them?
I don't want to stretch the truth about. I think time hundreds of billions of dollars, yes, collectively will come their way in the next 5 years. Let's no, we're here. Let's calm down. Carp said, and this is part of the reason why I am proud to be a Palantir. If there is a call and they're not getting paid, but it is what the country needs and it is what the West needs, they're going to show up and they're going to do the job. And they're always, quote unquote, going to be a government person first and worry about commercial second, in my opinion. The commercial is going to grow. You're going to see that. We see them penetrating and expanding and, getting the product in hundreds of enterprises. And the acquire, expand, scale phase, it had its ups and downs. It's officially really starting to get the alpha we're hoping for as an investor. And I think next year in 2025, we're really going to see big numbers expand from the commercial side. But if World War III were to officially declare tomorrow for whatever reason, and it was all hands on deck, and they said to him, every employee is getting to the office and you are focused on A, B, and C, and is military only, I can 100% see Carp doing that. Would that ever happen? No, I think they're big enough and they're protected enough that they can take care of the commercial clients and fight at the same time.
Right.
Because if you think about it, half the commercial clients are integrated with the government in national security in some way, shape, or form. When you're building the digital AI electric grid with all these major energy companies, you're talking to the White House every day. So it's going to be protected probably through Palantir, Gotham somehow. So it's a lot of intertwined. Like I said, it's very disjointed and jointed to start the stream. It's their defense at the end of the day. They just happen to have built a product, and this was what America used to be. And Carp said this too: is they developed a product for the military that can be adapted for commercial use. And if the stock went to zero tomorrow for whatever reason or next week, I'd go down with the ship, and I will stand by that, because if I'm going down with battle tested military grade software. Like, no way am I going down with anything else.
Let me ask you this question. What do you think Palantir's potential role is in Ukraine? I mean, not Ukraine, Israel right now, if there is any role.
Well, they have an office in Tel Aviv. I don't know if a lot of people know that. They have an office in Tel Aviv. They've had one since 2015. I don't know if it's standing right now. I don't know if it's, I have zero idea. I'd like to think they probably have a pretty good defense fortress over there in the Tel Aviv office. I think they're, and look, I don't know if a lot of people know this. Carp is Black Jew, so I think this hits home a little bit more to Carp than maybe Russia Ukraine did. Though I think it hits home just as much to him. Not to say that he's discounting one. I think he takes both same level of seriousness and gives it each his effort. I think right now their main thing is really with the hostages and just targeting. And like I said, this stuff is so secretive. So right now, there's probably going on over the Gaza Strip right now, there's probably 10, 20 drones, MQ-9 Reapers, or everything. And they're probably all connected to Maven or through Gotham Europa, and they're watching through Meta Constellation. So they are very, very involved. So, like, one of the main things that I want to talk here about, and I didn't want to just to shift things off of war, was Space Force and the UDL and the OODA loop. So
Right.
I don't know if are you familiar with the OODA loop?
I remember watching Willy Wonka, and there were Oompa Loompas on that movie, but never heard of the OODA loop before.
Well, the OODA loop is observe, orient, decide, act. So it's basically you're sitting up in a plane and you're watching your Chinese warfighter plane, and he's making moves, and you're like, whoa, what do I do right now? So you're in the OODA loop. You've got to figure out what the fuck to do. So you're trying to figure out. That's basically what it is. You're just living life. You're doing your patrol in the China Sea, and next you got a bunch of fighter jets coming at you. So what they're trying to do basically is make the OODA loop as quick as possible without any error, without any human interruption, but the human makes the decision. So what that means for Palantir is they have to get all this information, all this data, all this in a feedback loop in real time as quickly as possible to perfect the OODA loop so the warfighter can make the correct decision. So you're seeing this through a sky kit, because what Ukrainians are doing is they're sitting in their bunker, they pull out their sky kit. I don't know if I'm sure you've seen some videos on Twitter or combat footage. I love that. So I'm always watching combat footage. And they basically take out an iPad, and it's real life Call of Duty, but it's way more serious, obviously, and a lot harder to win. It's not like you get 25 kill streak and here comes an airstrike. Doesn't work that way. They are getting everything in real time and making the decision. So if you watch any of the videos, and some of them are more gruesome than others, other of them are okay, they they have drones that are just flying above soldiers and that are just dropping munitions grenades on them to the T. And they could be in a bunker, they could be covered under bushes and bushels and forage. It's like very, very impressive how the OODA loop and the kill chain is so quick to be from target seen, target destroyed. And that's really what we've seen a lot of improvements on in the past year. And one of the great things that I'm going to share with you, and I did mention it before, is the Space Force. But I just want to share this one image before we get there, or rather, maybe two images. So let me share these two images.
Thank you everybody for being here in the chat. We got 278 people learning about OODA loops that I did not know before.
I'm not an OODA loop expert, by the way, but I know and understand. So this is the JADC2 definition in a picture. So if you asked anyone to describe it, this is what it is. And this is an unbelievable image. Like, I don't know about you, but Kleenex stock has got to be going up in price right now. So, this is the what. So, and you can even see interoperability. Like we know this term very, very well. And you can see data, data, data. So it's the data, how we connect to it in the air, in the land, in the sea, in the space, in cyberspace. And you have all these systems that are all different, but you notice they're all coming together through this one architecture. And if you look, it's just one giant warfighting network. And remember what I showed you before, what powered JADC2, data, AI, and I don't know if you could see, but I don't know if you see what I'm seeing, the original image.
Yeah, we see it. Yeah, we see it.
So it is really, really, I think everyone's getting the point. So this is why the data and the AI are so important, because you're moving data, and this all came from that conference with Akash John that we started with. These were the slides they showed. This is all that's really public about JADC2. It's very, this is it. So you can't really get much more. So you're seeing all of it. It's very, very similar, as you can see. Joint allies, services, partners. Like I mentioned, they do a lot of work with the Five Eyes. That is US, Canada, UK, I think Australia and New Zealand. So it's a lot of work with the Five Eyes. They get access to a lot of data, obviously, and you can see all this stuff. So, and Amit, if you do remember, and you tweeted this, and this was a good tweet, in the 10Q, we saw that they put in a 10-year, $2 billion cloud compute purchase with a cloud provider. It was probably Correct. Amazon. It was probably AWS if I had to put my money.
You don't think anywhere. It was Google? You thought it was AWS? I thought it was Google.
AWS.
You think it's AWS? Okay.
Google ain't touching JADC2 without IL6, my buddy. No, it's I'd
Let's see what
be
you can do.
very, very, very surprised if it was Google. But
See, I was thinking Google because the cloud partnership they announced in 2022, but that is more commercial. If this is more for the government clients, yeah, it's probably AWS.
so that will sort of segue. I know I wanted to speak on the Space Force document real quickly, but Army Vantage. I don't know if everybody remembers the Army Vantage, but
Yep.
Army Vantage is on AWS.
That
So
was
that's
160
why
million December 2021. We got that contract, Army Vantage. 116 million.
cor- correct. But you have to remember they had 113 million in 2020, and
Mm,
in 29 and they got Army Vantage in 2019 for a 460 million dollar agreement. So
mm.
all these systems that they're building now for hundreds and 200s of millions that are 2, 3, 4, 5 years out, what do you think's going to happen in 2, 3, 4, 5 years? You think they're going to say Palantir, great system, loved it, next? No, they're going to they're going to say
Can we
here's
get more?
500 million.
Can we
They're
get
going to
fries with
say
that, sir? Can we get some more?
e- exactly. It's just going to grow. They're going to build on it and improve it. And Army Vantage, basically, I don't know if for just people that need to know what it is, and I'm going to sound like a broken record because it's just basic data crap. I know it's not basic. I know how hard it is, and Palantir makes it so basic. And because we talk about it 24/7, it's basic at this point in our life. Army Vantage is powered by Palantir software, which provides a central operating system that enhances readiness and offers near real-time visibility and controlled access to disparate Army data sources on an integrated data platform. The Palantir platform enables organizations to make better use of the data they have by breaking down silos and offering them a single operating picture for decision making. That's it. That all they do is bring data together, make a nice pretty picture, and they hand you some really nice tools that say, and then you can build a house like the beautiful Lego picture that I like to post. So, you know, but this is a key line. The Army Vantage platform was established to enable users to make data driven decisions, allowing the Army to leverage its data as a strategic asset. Palantir contributed partnership with the Army since the platform's launch has helped generate and integrate. So, mind you, this article is 2, 3 years old already at this point that we're reading from.
Right.
Integrate over 30,000 unique data sets from 160 distinct systems. What do you think has happened in the 2, 3 years? They probably now have 40,000 unique distinct sets, and they probably have 100. They probably have 200, different distinct systems. So Vantage, is huge, and that's why I think the compute power is probably Amazon. I'll be
Mm.
I'd be very surprised if it's not Amazon. It's got to be Microsoft. I'd be surprised if it's not one of the IL6s. I would have a very hard time believing Google, um, but you never know, and that's kind of one of the fun thing about being an investor in any company is doing the research. So I did want to share Space Force.
Yeah. Go for it.
And we can go back very quickly to the beginning to tie everything all in really, but I didn't want this article. Sorry, clicked the wrong one.
Brian in the chat says, still really believe commercial will become bigger for Palantir. I think we all believe commercial can be big. It's just when you hear Adam talk about, tens of billions of dollars that potentially could go to a handful of companies, you start to remember why government revenue has been more than commercial every quarter for the past, 12 quarters that they've been public, right? Like there's a reason for that.
I, I will say, and I will go on record, of course, the commercial is extremely important and get to the alpha growth that we want and to the behemoth that we all think and agree what it should be without the commercial. I agree. Government is slow, but yes, they can potentially get a $2 billion contract out of nowhere next week. It can it happen? Of course. Are they going to get a $2 billion contract out of United Healthcare next week? No, they are not going to do that. But over time,
Correct.
they are going to get $2 billion out of United Healthcare. And for people that have been following me, And I know Lord Grim digged it up. There is a little bit of connection. I know I've been saying that's when the conquest will end of healthcare, when Palantir fully integrates United Healthcare, and that is top dog right there. And we actually had this discussion in the Discord, just so everybody knows it's not a bunch of teenagers dicking around doing nothing. But we looked up real quickly. The budget for NHS was about, I think it said the budget was, I think it was like $190 billion or whatever in pounds,
Yeah.
whatever it was. United Healthcare's revenue of 2022, one company, 327 billion. People, wake the fuck up. I know NHS is important. The dollars are not the important part. The validity that the software works is the important
Correct.
part. The billions
Correct.
will come. The
Correct.
commercial billions will come. But to say the government's not important, you are overlooking, because going forward, when they beat and they smash their estimates, maybe they do hit the S curve and they really get that massive alpha growth from commercial. But since they've been public, it's the cherry on top, the ice cream. It's always been the government, and sometimes government moves slow. It's lumpy, they say, and sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't. They're going to get it, but it's going to be a very, very long, 6 years if we want to take that 2030 vision at heart. I do it like, can we potentially get $5 billion in revenue by the end of the decade from the government? It's not that far fetched to think it can happen. I mean, if Titan is $1 billion contract, and granted, Titan is not supposed to be a 2027. I don't know if people realize that. After this, there's supposed to be another phase after this. And that next phase is going to take a year or two, because they're not supposed to check it till 2026.
Right.
So you're not going to just go from $1 billion Titan and then get $5 billion next year. So it's going to take time, but you'll get $1 billion for Titan, and then you'll get, I read the numbers. You might get $500 million here, $800 million here, $50 million here. It's going to come. I very much want to find this one Space Force article. I am having trouble finding it. I thought it's well worth it. So I
You can try finding it. I'll answer some stuff in the chat while you're looking for that. Thank you all for being here. Obviously, there's a lot of money that we're discussing in this government world. ET FaceTime says OODA Loops are a great cereal. I agree. Probably a very good cereal. Will says this guy is very informative. Please have him on more often. Adam, you're welcome whenever. We should have had you on YouTube a long time ago. You've been on Twitter for a while, but this stuff is important.
I was told many moons ago from Gus Johnson. I'm not sure if people know who Gus Johnson is, that I had a face for radio. So maybe it's bound to happen.
I'm with you, brother. I'm right there with you. Lee Allison says, do you know of any military contracts for Palantir that have had substantial modifications to add more money for Palantir? Thanks. There's definitely
a lot of the contracts that they get, and that even sometimes I tweet out and whatnot, it's very confusing how the money is actually allocated and paid. So a lot of the contracts that we see, like we might see a contract come out next week, and they might get some of the money and they might get paid in Q1 2024, and the contract run all the way through 2026. So they might get like a $300 million contract, but they might only get 50 million there, 50 million there. They might get half of it and the other half once it's completed. So they all vary. It's very, very hard. It's very, very confusing. I try not to worry too much about that, because it's too confusing at that point.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay,
yes, you can try to find that.
All right, I found the thing that I wanted to share with everybody. So I'm going to share my screen for this. I think we should read this, because this is good. Really, really good stuff that we're looking at right here. So this came out from the Space Force. And it's all about harnessing data. And this is from 2021. But when we read it, you're going to understand the severity and how big it is. And if you remember from last time, you'll even notice they mentioned Project Brown Heron. So this is back from April 30th, 2021. Space Systems Command Core Mission Ground Communication Enterprise recently awarded 50 million film fixed blah 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 to Palantir. This expands upon a previous award blah 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 from 91 million. Harnessing the power of data enables our military leaders to make decisions quickly, efficiently, and with greater confidence, resulting in real world mission impacts. This award provides capabilities for the Project Brown Heron efforts under the United States Air Force Vice Chief of Staff Office, all domain situational awareness and decision making at NORAD, US Northcom, and the Space C2 division under ECX. The Warp Core platform, that's Palantir, is being utilized to harvest actionable insights for large volumes of data in support of these visions. Warp Core, based on the Palantir platform, is a configurable enterprise data management and operations software solution. It enables the integration and management of data from various disparate data sources and support application delivery, in-depth analysis, and data-driven decision-making across echelons and functional communities, including users who operate in multiple security levels across multiple networks. An application and data landscape continue to rapidly expand in both scale and complexity. Notice, it's still scaling. Granted, that was 2 years ago. Warp Core simplifies and streamlines data management and integration, resulting in more timely and improved decision making. So, and you'll notice Warp Core, and you'll see some JADC too. But the main reason why I wanted you to show this is they mentioned advanced battle management system. So you can see investments and capabilities such as Warp Core and the Department of the Defense can not only carry out its known missions, but also has the foundation in place for extingent, unplanned events requiring agile and scalable responses. Palantir is dedicated to ensuring American service members have the best technology possible to win, no matter where they serve, said Doug Philippone, Palantir's global defense lead. We deliver world-class product and also enabled our teams directly with users, deepening our partnership with the Air Force and Space Force to ensure major modernization efforts succeed. And then, like I said, right here, it says blah, 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 core mission, which combine, and this is going to be key, the Space Force Unified Data Library, UDL. That's going to be something we're going to see a lot of going forward. Warp Core efforts, portfolio, blah, 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 advanced battle management, and broader joint all-demand command and control. So there it is. But here's my favorite part of the actual article, actually, is this was Palantir's code name. This division will build upon the work pioneered by Space C2, also called Kobayashi Maru, who initially led the Warp Core prototype platform.
That's
Gotta love
Palantir?
Palantir.
Kobayashi Maru is Palantir?
Kobayashi Maru.
That's hilarious.
You can see it's all this joint connectedness that they're trying to build. So you can see the Air Force has to be connected to the Space Force, which has to be connected to the Navy, which has to be connected to the Army. So you're starting to see all the little tentacles touch anything. So the Space Force is building up, and it's going to be built off Warp Core, and you're going to be integrated with the Advanced Battle Management System. So when Lockheed or when Northrop sends their F-16s or their B-21s or whatever, they're going to be able to watch everything. They're getting all that feedback. They're going to know, oh, there's a fucking whale in the ocean. Like, they're going to know all this information. So it's pretty remarkable, and it's improving every day. That is the remarkable thing, is it's so secretive and how quickly it's improving. And as an investor, we have no idea. We have no idea how good the product actually is. All we can see is Ukraine and is Israel at the curb. Are they alive? That's the proof at the moment.
Let's end it off on this question, because you mentioned Ukraine. I think this has been really informative. Everyone's gotten a lot of value from this in the comments. Do you think we're going to get any money from Ukraine outside of the digital reconstruction, are we actually going to get paid for like the stuff we're doing on the battlefield?
I think we are getting paid for it in some degree. I think it's not what people expected. I think most defense contractors, and granted, I'm not in the room, they would pull a Goodfellas, "Fuck you, pay me." And I think they would get paid if they pulled that out because it's very simple. You don't pay me, you don't get your rocket. You don't get your rocket, you die. Unfortunately, that's the world we live in. Whereas Palantir will gladly say, "Here's a nuclear weapon. Pay me in a few years." Because I think that's what CARP ultimate thing is if they don't supply the software to help them win, there is no Ukraine.
Right.
And I think that's what people don't understand. And I think if we're going to end it off on a note like this, I read somewhere, I forgot where it was, and it really hit hard. Is in the past, basically since the '60s, if you will, and I know this is going to sound a little wrong, if you will. The world has been pretty peaceful for the most part since the '60s. Like
Yeah.
I know there's been wars, but prior to then, there was always war going on, specifically in America. You had Vietnam, you had Korea, you had World War II, you had World War One, then you had, Civil War. You had all these wars in America. America has always been fighting. And guess what, people? Humanity always going to be war. No matter where you are on this planet, there's always going to be war. And I think people took that for granted that we can live in a peaceful world. And CARP and Palantir, they saw that, and then they saw that immediately after 9/11 that
Mhm.
it is not a peaceful world. We have to get ready. And what happened in Ukraine and what happened in Israel could happen to us. And I don't think it would ever happen with Mexico. I don't think Mexico would ever try to just, air raid fucking Fort Worth or whatever, or Texas. They would just fly over the border. But what if we had a neighbor that was like, that was a Hamas, that, like that's the main thing. So I think it's really, I think from that standpoint, they're always going to say, take, win, survive, and then if that's in 2, 3, 5 years from now, they're going to get paid big money from Ukraine. Now, is that going to be United States tax money or NATO money going to Ukraine to build back the country? Or are they going to get Russia to pay back? Because that's what's supposed to happen in war. When the losers lose, or like they have to pay. People don't realize that. Like when you win a war, you decide how it ends and what's going to go forward. And the key thing, and this is going to be the very big nerd in me, I'm a big Game of Thrones fan, books over the show and everything. But one of the big things that makes a good person or a good king is when you defeat the enemy, you help them and you lift them back up. Like that's what America tries to do. We don't want to cut off people, and no, like we're trying to build a better world. So
That's what
we'll
happened
get
with
paid from
Japan.
Ukraine.
After we dropped a bomb on them, right? We then became friends with them.
Not, I'm telling you, got to read this book, The Bomber Mafia. It's an incredible book, and it's all real, unbelievable. They built a museum basically saying how that was the best thing for the country because it rebuilt them and retaught them like our culture. That there are obviously every country has their issues, but they're very, I don't want to say the word thankful. They're not thankful that somebody fucking killed 200,000 of their people with 3 weapons: atomic bomb one, atomic bomb two, and napalm, which we can talk about, which was a fun little bomber mafia story. But they don't want that, and that's the main thing. And Japan's a perfect example. So will they get Ukraine money? I think they will. Is it going to be $5 billion, like we said? We don't know. They can get any type of money at any given moment. We see how deep they are all over the world. Lord Grimm does an unbelievable job. Like we know how deeply connected they are with Lithuania and other NATO countries. Like we don't know. There is so much behind the scenes that we will never, ever, ever know. And that's just something you have to take a bet on as an investor. You either think this is going to happen, and we've connected dots. That's what we did here today. All we did was
Right.
connect dots.
No, well, you
And
connected a lot of dots, and everyone is very thankful for that. Derek Schwartz, thank you for the $10 super chat, man. Amit and GoCarp, among others, are building a great Palantir community. Well done, and thank you both. Yeah, man, you're
yeah,
doing your
no,
thing.
and Yeah, no, I thank everybody in the Discord. Everyone definitely, does their own research and chimes in and whatnot. I mean, obviously the patents are a big deal. That's how I found out about the headset technology coming in. JADC2, which is hardcore digging. I think going forward in the Palantir community, if you ever just see Convergence, Overmatch, Linchpin, Titan, JADC2, get in the Discord, tell me where you found it. I'll do some digging. Let me know on Twitter. It's exciting times ahead in terms of what's coming down the pipeline, and the fun part is you don't know when it's coming, but it's coming, and that's the beautiful part. Is like, and we saw how the hive mind, Aki John is the committee of JADC2, so they are going to be connected. But we saw all the money, 1.4 billion, but they got 1.8 billion for just AI. So it's a very
And then we also
disjointed
saw
going to
Biden on his AI regulations. There's I forget the name of one of the guys on the 10 people on the enforcement of those regulations is from Palantir. I forgot their name, but I talked about it a couple days ago. But they've got their hands everywhere, right?
everywhere. And if you're in the Discord, you'll know I'm obviously a big fan of Wendy R. Anderson. And for people that
Dude, she
don't
loves
know,
us. She likes all my tweets. She never responds to me because I think she has to stay away a little bit, but she likes
she's
everything.
uh, I don't think she's allowed to respond to us.
Yeah.
But for people who don't realize, like, she was in the Obama administration, like a high-ranking official in the Department of Defense. Like, they are very, very everywhere militarily. So they are going to get it. It's just, and maybe it's just the way how software works, and I'm not a software guy, but if Karp has the nuclear weapon, let's just use his terminology to a degree, and he's going to charge the Army $10 billion for it, and the Army says to him, I only want to pay you five. What is he going to do? He's going to take the $5 billion and he's going to say, all right, well, we'll work on the other 5 billion throughout the year. But my point is they have the technology, it's embedded, it's not going anywhere, it's getting better by the day. The only thing that I would like as an investor, and I know this is more investor, but I would like them to be, I know they can't, especially Carp. They got to be a little bit more open with what they're doing with the government and defense. When I saw that fucking headset, man, oh man, you had no idea. Like they knew we were listening because Ted said, "Yeah, like, come on, come on, Palantir, Lisa Gordon, you're watching Twitter. Come on, give me a break." So
It's gonna be
be a little
exciting,
bit
man.
more open with us. Yeah, no, good.
It's
Very
gonna be
exciting.
really exciting. Adam, let me put your Twitter again in the
I
description.
appreciate
Thank
you
you,
having
Adam,
me.
for joining. And you have your Discord as well. You can plug that as well because I know it's a growing Discord with Palantir people.
Please, Discord has about 1,600 members. I would say, yeah, I don't surprise 1,600 members. I would say about a solid 50 are active every day. Great people, all from literally from all over the planet. South Korea, Thailand, US, UK. Join. We have a good time. When the stock goes up, stock goes down. We got to make each other laugh. And good research always. And
And
I
what's the name of the
appreciate you
book
having
again?
me.
Bomber Mafia?
Yeah, the book is The Bomber Mafia. Highly, highly recommended. Very, very interesting. Gives you a very good idea of what the military, quote unquote, mind is like for strategic kill chain in the 40s. And now apply that to today. And you can see, you could picture Karp reading that book in his dorm. Just be like, you could just be like, I got this. Like, you could just picture it. Like, you could just picture that. Like,
Yeah,
him and Thiel
probably.
just having like a drink, just being like, all right, we'll call Greg from Apollo. We'll have it done by next week. So,
I love
you
it.
gotta love it.
All right, man. Thank you so much for
Appreciate it.
joining. Everyone, make sure to follow him on Twitter. His Discord's in the Twitter as well. And we'll have you on again very soon. And we'll talk more Palantir on another day.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a great Saturday, everybody. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.